Hey guys, this is Juan Escobar and Austin James again, back with another episode of Chop It Up. So in this episode, as we talked in our last episode, that we're going to go over Renovations of the Heart by Dallas Willard. So this week we're going to chop it up about the first chapter. So kind of just to get some highlights on there. There's this point, Austin, on, well, one thing, when he started off that chapter, I liked that he defined the heart as something that we live out from. So I thought that was really interesting. And, just a little bit more into that, it kind of reminded me of like Deuteronomy 6:5, right? Where God says to the people of Israel to like love him with all their heart, all their soul, and all their strength. So I know in the past when I've read that verse that like I've had a hard time comprehending that heart and soul distinction, because I thought it was kind of like it's the same thing, right? Like your soul's in your heart or something like that. But I just thought it was really interesting the way he just pointed that out. And so I think later on he talks about how the spirit, I think we're three parts, right? We're spirit, soul, and what's the other one? Mind, maybe? I don't know. But
people combine souls, like we got spirit, soul, mind, or spirit, soul, body. You said mind,
spirit,
but
soul,
some
body.
people
Yeah, that's it.
souls,
Spirit, soul,
heart,
body.
and mind together.
Okay. So then just him defining what spirit is, I thought that was cool, that it's a formation of our choices and experiences, and so that was really cool. And then he mentions later on that our life actually reflects how we interpret or just how we interpret it from the inside. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I just thought that was cool just to see that the spirit is the way we're like even just perceiving our outer world, like it's coming from the inside going out.
How that inner reflection on the world. And then I like how too he puts on a grand scheme that even our choices that we make from our inner being, they have outcomes. And he kind of makes this bold statement that today's world, that famine, war, and epidemic are almost totally the outcome of human choices. So
Yeah.
those people, it's almost the very people that believe that their choices don't matter, they're actually probably the ones that are contributing to these kind of global disasters that God had created us in community for this thing to work in harmony. So when one person doesn't act out the role, it actually does cause chaos and destruction in the world as a whole.
Yeah. So let's see here. So I really also like that human choices, like our choices, really do have a much bigger impact than what we think. So I think later on in the book he talks about let's see, the human situation and just how that we're all asking like what makes life go. And so going back to what we were talking about earlier in this past highlight, it is what we are on the inside. So he also talked about how churches are these well, first of all, he mentioned something that Jesus didn't send his disciples to create systems, and that he simply just their job was to like bring the kingdom to all by living in the kingdom with him. So I think that's an interesting point, because I've kind of seen that for myself. It's just kind of seeing how as we've been through church, I've been through church, Um, it's this defined space, right? Like we almost make like this little bubble of just, this is what we do. We gather at this building, within these four walls, and we have this culture here. And so, you if you're an outsider, right, coming in, like you just feel like I don't know, maybe an outcast. That could be extreme sometimes, but just it's hard to fit in sometimes if you don't know what the culture's like there. So I think with Dallas just kind of presenting this point, I think there's a lot more freedom when you're living through the kingdom. So um, I think that's an interesting point, to make, because yeah, I think we just, as a church, man, we're just like really structured to like create this bubble, but you know,
Yeah, I agree. I think we're we're inclined to do that based on the first thing we're talking about, how humanity's, I guess, improper slash selfish choices uh, corrupt the world as a whole. So then he brings up a quote by T.S. Eliot
yeah,
that the current human endeavor is that of finding a system of order so perfect that we will not have to be good. So that in the sense that it's almost just it's this mechanical, like you said, bubble that's able to instruct people to live in a harmonious way.
yeah,
But what you'd been talking about earlier is that that's not what Jesus was doing, and that there's always going to be impotence in systems, is that
yeah,
the individuals, they have to be able to have that harmony within themselves. So he describes it as that Jesus came instead to establish beachheads of his person, word, and power in the midst of a failing and futile humanity. Everything humanity will realize when it makes mistakes, but it realizes it can never correct itself, and it's always trying to do that. And every correction that it makes, it overcorrects, it makes a different problem. So that's
yeah,
why he was saying Jesus was not trying to create a new system by which humans would just learn how to overcorrect and mess up whatever system he made. He realized in order for the system to work, you have to correct, in a sense, the individuals in the system. You don't create a system that can purify the individual. You purify the individual, that and it'll thus make a system.
yeah. Yeah, so I really like that. And then, um, as I said earlier, what makes life go? Um, it is what we are on the inside. So then he brings up this point along with that, where I think, or was it a quote from Oscar Wilde,
Mm-hmm.
Wilde or Wilde? I don't know which one it is,
Or
but
wild, it just goes wild.
Wild. Okay, Wild.
That's spelled that way.
Yeah. So he says something to the effect of like, by the age of 40, everyone has
Mm-hmm.
like the face they deserve. So, yeah, I thought that was like legit, man, because it sets up, even just at least for me, it sets up like the structure, right, of what, or a time frame for how our spiritual growth can look. And so, while I was like reflecting on that, I thought like, you know, I probably have 12 years till I reach 40, man. So like, what kind of character do I want to have at that point, And um, so I think even that's just like a little kind of challenge for myself, is to kind of recognize like, what are the values that I'm trying to achieve at this point for my character,
Mm-hmm.
and you know I guess, what have I learned up to this point that I can just build on in order to have like this character that reflects Christ, or allows me to and I guess even then, like, I guess you even have to define what type of character you want to have, right? Because like
Mm-hmm.
what you were saying previously, right? Like, I could be a terrible person based on my experiences and my choices, right? Like, do I want to be a good person, or
Mm-hmm.
what's the type of man I want to be? So um so first defining that, and then just kind of looking, what are the values, what are the characteristics of a person that looks like this ideal self that I want to be at that age. So I thought that was really, really cool. Would you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just like that this part of it is just really addressing our humanity. That if we really do bear the image of God, whatever we're growing towards, whatever we're appealing to, whatever values, like you said, we're going after, that's what we're going to reflect. But how we actually went about that, at this age he just throws out 40, will be the reality of how much we actually pursued that, or if we pursued something else that would corrupt our image. So like I was saying earlier about systems get overcorrected based on the consequences of a mistake that happens. Same thing with like your personal faith, individual choices, even though in the grand scheme of things you can be forgiven as your identity, but the reality of the image you bear of God, you've been given a responsibility of how, in a sense, almost to steward your image. So whatever you go towards is going to affect your image to a certain degree. So I
Yeah,
love that he actually just delves into the literal fact that you bear an image, and then whatever you're going towards is going to affect that image.
right. Yeah, it's some important stuff to think about moving forward.
Yeah.
And another highlight I liked, well, it wasn't really a highlight, but just kind of like this theme of that, talk about spiritual formation and, having your heart renovated. Um, obviously it's got to be through Jesus, right? Like it's got to be Jesus coming in and through his presence, giving you this new order of life. And so um, I thought that he makes something, he talks to the effect of like, it's Jesus making this invasion of the natural human reality by him coming and bringing a supernatural life from above. So, um, you know, there's another part where he talks about that spirituality, or just talking about like the sciences and how the sciences kind of, they try to bring in spirituality, but it's not complete because it's more of like an external uh or sensational, because he talked about the senses, right? Like it's the way they go about things, because that's what's tangible, that's what's
Mm-hmm.
um real world. And so they can't really describe what's going on in the heart, right? So
Yeah.
um I thought that for me, I know personally, like recently I've been like trying to do like personal development. So I thought, um maybe if I can just be more aware of who I am as a person, aware of my flaws, aware of like things that I can be working on, maybe I can like live out the Christian life better, because of
Mm-hmm.
improvements, So this was a good reminder, man, that, um, first of all, I can't do that on my own, right? Like I can't do it through my
Mm-hmm.
own actions, but the fact that I guess I'm trying to be a better person, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the cool thing is that Jesus is the one who's actually working on the inside, because that was the disconnect, right? Like there's these good things I was learning from personal development, but like I think it's true, like they just couldn't address the spiritual part of it. It was more of like a secular way of going about um improvement. So I think now kind of hearing this from Dallas is that, you know Jesus is that divide, or is that bridge of that divide where like the heart and the external world don't really connect. So I thought that was really good.
Mm-hmm. And I like how too you describe kind of a war within yourself. And I was thinking about that too. Is like, how can you truly change if the person trying to change you is you? So in a
Yeah.
sense, you may
Okay.
become just like a slightly better version of you, but you don't become
Right.
a different being. You don't go a different thing. So if you even
Yeah.
see you would classify like you have blind spots and you have corruptions. How do you change that? Like in the sense, like literally, if you know you have a blind spot, that means you're blind in an area. So that's what I was thinking too. In order to truly change, something new has to be introduced. So that's why I kept with that war analogy, and why I really like the word that he used the word invasion. Because when we think
Mhm.
about an invasion, that means one army is going in to overthrow another. One kingdom's going in to overthrow another kingdom. But the distinction I wanted to make about how Jesus is leading this invasion is that it's not something that was forced. It's something that was freely given. But on the converse of what we see, when we see his offer, it's
Yeah.
freely accepted. So not only does Jesus give all life and abundance and prosperity that he's about, he doesn't force or manipulate you to receive it. So it's not this battle that you're used to going in the secular way of constantly refining, constantly getting more knowledge, or the more spiritual way of more going deeper and deeper and deeper into who you are in the
Yeah.
sense of like making battle plans of how to battle yourself. It's like, no, it's all given, but it's freely accepted. So I like that part of like, yeah, you can make the parallels to invasion, but it's an invasion, but in the sense of like, it's nothing like an invasion. So that's what I like about it too, is it almost redefines. It's the most weird invasion you've ever heard of before, but I really like that.
Nice. And like to build on that, like he also talked about just how this even like affects denominations, you know, and how that sometimes we ask ourselves the question like, am I a Christian, right? And so the fact that Christ is the one that's working in us through in our hearts, you know, like I think that it was cool to see that the way we can relate to each other is because, you know, it is through Christ working in our hearts that we can make this, I guess, connection despite from being from different denominations. Because I know previously the way I've like viewed denominations is like, so throughout history, you know, we see splits, right? We see splits of people having different ideas or taking different stances on whether it be like theological issues or doctrine. I don't know if that's different from theological issues, but, you know, just taking these stances on things. And, you know, I thought then that just like individualizes, you know, each split, right? And then they think that they've got ultimate truth, you know, but I just thought that him showing that like we're all in this together, you know, and the connection we make is through the heart connection that we have when we're Christ-like is it's really cool, man, because it's not I guess it's not separating us, you know, in order to just like be these individual denominations. I know you said there's like 3,000 or something denominations now in Christianity,
Actually,
which is
33.
insane. Yeah, dude, 33,000. Wow. So yeah, dude, like it's just insane how many splits. But yeah, any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's kind of like you're saying with heart connection that your denominations exist to create certain distinctions of the Christian faith. But what you're saying with heart connection, what gives kind of a definition of that is what he likes to call spiritual formation. That was the title of the chapter of this book, is that he's introducing spiritual formation. And you could say that's kind of his lingo about going through the process of his title of the book of renovation of the heart. But I feel how he would describe renovation of the heart is through this spiritual formation, which he describes that the spiritual formation for the Christian basically refers to the spirit-driven process of forming the inner world of the human self in such a way that it becomes like the inner being of Christ himself. So put in more contemporary language that we hear about love. And I loved his definition of love. And it's kind of like you were previously talking about, what we were talking about too, about how you're trying to form yourself into a more perfect person to be a good person. But he talks about with love, that if we're merely trying to act lovingly, that will lead to despair in the defeat of love itself. It will make us angry and hopeless. And he gets into talk about that the solution to this is by taking love itself, God's kind of love, into the depths of our being through spiritual formation will, by contrast, enable us to act lovingly. So you must first become love and then live through that. You don't seek out love and seek to transform yourself into it. You accept that Christ has transformed you already, and then you walk out of that truth and that spirit. In a sense, that is the Holy Spirit, is when you believe you are loved. You believe love died for you and gave himself to you. And that's how you then love people.
That's cool.
It says, yeah, that's
Yeah,
the greatest commandment.
it's powerful.
How
Yeah,
you
man.
love God is you accept that he's freely given himself. And when you've accepted that, that's how you then live out the second greatest commandment, is that you love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm. Yeah, it's good. So yeah, he does define this as spiritual formation, right? And so I think I had written down that it was like being formed to be focused more like Christ, right? And so um, he he brings in like this idea of external presentation to where like that's like it was like a bad thing, right? Like it actually hurts spiritual formation because um, it focuses more on just like the outer works, kind of like what I was talking about of just like wanting to do better, like it leaves just room for legalism, and so I think uh, so the way we should kind of like look at just what spirit formation is like you don't do to become, right? Like you realize what has been given to you and what's now in you, and you live it out. You live it out, and so um, I think something else that was cool too was that um, I think he brought in like three different things that help to form spiritual formation, and it was like like you said, like there's the Holy Spirit, right? And then you've got the Word, and I think coming from that charismatic background, that's what I leaned more towards. Is like I'm gonna let the Holy Spirit do the work, and then not realize too that I have God's Word as well, that I'm able to build off of that as well. And then he mentioned another one that was other people that have lived Christ-like lives. And so I think just thinking right now, there's some, like, I guess we can look at the people in the Bible, but I think this can go with people from history, right? That we can look back on and just um, see their lives, and how they've lived out their faith in order to learn from them as well. So I think that was pretty interesting as well. So you got any thoughts on what I've kind of talked about?
Yeah, just echoing what I'd said previously, is that it's kind of my final sentiment is that love has freely been given to me, not based on that I earned it. So then I can also unconditionally love others, and there's no standard, there's no law they have to meet for me to accept them, because I'm fully accepted, I can accept others.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I think this is pretty cool topic. Just
Mm-hmm.
I find that, yeah, dude. Just going back to the whole, like, having looked at personal development, man, it's just this is the this is that missing link, for me, man. Just realizing that,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, the growth is going to really come from Christ, and then that's going to now, I guess, even just determine how I interpret the world, how I go about it. It's not me trying to battle on my own, and just kind of like, what's the word? Yeah, that quote, Invictus. I remember this was like a quote we had on our cross country shirts back in high school. And so, like, we were the masters of our own fate. So that's kind of what I thought, just kind of going about the world would be for me, is like, I got to be the master of my fate, and just take control of, you know, real life, and then God will take care of the spiritual realm, and so the fact that this is kind of like meshing together now, both worlds, this is really, really great for me. So
Nice.
finding this really, really helpful. So any other thoughts?
That's it, bro. That's all I got.
It? All
Mm-hmm.
right. Well, seems like we got a shorter video this time around. And
Amen.
so, yeah, man. So yeah, this has been our kind of just highlights of this first chapter of Renovations of the Heart by Dallas Willard. And we'll be bringing more highlights as we keep discussing this book. And so next week, we'll probably bring you chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if you found anything here helpful, go ahead and comment down below. Give us a thumbs up for the like. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe because we're going to keep bringing you content. So, yeah, so this is our third episode of Chop It Up. And so,
Chopping it up.
yeah, this is us chopping it up as usual. And so I think we're going to end it here. And so, as always, I'm Juan Escobar. This is Austin James, and thank you for watching. We're heading out, so see you later.